Hello
and welcome to the solution where we scrutinize the social and economic way the wisdom of Kabbalah sees the new world. Hello, Dr. Lightman. Hello, everyone. And today we'd like to talk about the future model of the state and I where society is already into different stages of its correction. And when we talk about the corrected model, we also talk about the future model. What I'd like to open today's show with is ask about the aspect of time. How does the wisdom of Kabbalah see it? Because the wisdom of Kabbalah relates to things through the point of view of there was the creation, shattering, cascading of things, there's a goal, there's a reward, and all this is measured in time. Is the wisdom of Kabbalah a deterministic approach? Dr. Lightman, of course it is. And we all have to see things that way, that we're acting according to time, more precisely to say, according to forces that cascade into our world, operating us, whether we like it or not, more or less quickly in a more or less convenient way according to the measure to which we understand these forces that are acting on us, whether we want to work with them or against them. Accordingly, we move from stage to stage, but in each and every stage, we have to go through it by what we call path of Torah or path of suffering in a good or bad way, willingly or against our will, and one way or another we go through it and unfold into new states, especially nowadays. Onen. So, if there are deterministic conditions that have to be met, corrected society and so on, why does time have a meaning? These are states. Dr. Lightman. Of course, time doesn't exist. It's only the way we feel things. Were we not to feel that something's changing, we wouldn't say that time's passing. Time doesn't exist outside of man. It's only the way we feel it. It's a concept that was created and within our feeling. Onen. So, we're talking about what the wisdom of Kabbalah is supposed to bring us to, and on the other hand, there's man's free choice. Dr. Lightman, we can hasten time. We can go above the states that we're going through. That's called to hasten time, and to accept all of these states that come to us in a good and nice way, and to advance that way. Therefore, we think that it's possible to so-called change time, to be above time, if we understand what is this process that we're headed toward is taking us to. Bala Sulam wrote part of his articles where he talked about a global world, an interdependent world, very sharp things. He wrote it in the 30s of the 20th century. The last generation writings, he wrote it in the 50s. Almost 100 years went by. What is the meaning of time that went by since then? I think that the time since then and until today has accelerated, meaning time isn't according to minutes or hours, but in every chapter of time you have more minutes, more changes. If in the past, in a day you had 24 hours, then today you have like 48. Meaning that it's much more, the states are becoming much more dense. And during the day, there could be such states that, but it also depends on the speed at which we travel today, whereas in the past, you had to travel by horse, walking. It's because there are these kinds of connections between us, like mobile connections and so on. The world changed. The pace of our technology is working according to the new time. And therefore, today, a person, throughout his life, can do much more than before. In the past, people used to sit, walk, make a living, bear children. According to a simple pace, it was known in advance what will happen with a person. Today, if you don't travel around the world several times, then what's with you? You don't know what real life is. How could that be? A child, in Israel, he finishes the army, he has to go abroad. Well, even before, Dr. Lightman, right? And so on and so forth. Were you to tell someone about this even 50 years ago, they'd think that you're telling them about some kind of fairy tales. Ronen. So, for example, Bala Sulam, who really felt the need to bring people, to bring the world closer to the correction, prevent the terrible problems like Third and Fourth World Wars, there was a feeling that it could even happen the next day. But we see that it was written 80 years ago and it didn't happen, maybe won't happen. Dr. Leiben, no, not that it won't happen, because we are actually in a process that is coming to us from nature. It's above us. It's not that we're the ones to determine the roadmap and the calendar of different events and how they'll unfold. But we can say that Bala Sulam, he was a Kabbalist, and he acted according to his own time, meaning his personal, particular time. Not that he was living in the 30s of the 20th century, but he lived according to the way he felt things. That we're on the verge of those things, whereas we don't have the same perception of time as Bala Sulam did, and therefore it seems to us that it can come later. Ronen. So a Kabbalist has his own time zone, and he lives in a relatively more superficial time zone in this world, and the gap does what? Dr. Lightman, he knows the time that it happens to humanity and the time that things happen to him, but he usually follows his inner time, and just like he says that he thinks that we're in the times of the Messiah, I think so too. But it's a period. It could come in a few dozens of years until it will clear up to everyone. But we see that all the actions that we see in the world around us, that all these are nonetheless they are unfolding at a rapid pace. Ronen, so the models that we've analyzed on our previous shows and the changes in the world due to the corona pandemic and so on, when I hear what you're saying, it seems to me that it's happening now, that it's supposed to happen now, and it's accelerating. Dr. Leighton, we're living with the corona all in all for 3 months. See how the world changed. Look at what's going on. Therefore, these things, they can change very quickly. And all other parameters, levels, Ronen, can they change in another 60 or 70 years? Dr. Leighton, to me it seems that it won't be delayed or postponed any longer, because people are losing their desire to live according to the way things are today. They're losing direction. The younger generation, there is no connection between the generations, the generation gap. People don't want to have children at all, don't want to have a family, and so on. I mean, the world is crumbling, and therefore, here there has to come some kind of a different form of connection between people, and especially between people and the purpose of life, the meaning of life that has completely disappeared and is unclear. If in the past it was family, children, to give them whatever you can, and so on. And this is what the reason for which we exist, live our lives, sustain ourselves. Today, it's something that completely doesn't exist in the younger generation. Not only that they don't want to get married, but they don't even have to have some kind of personal, intimate relations. So much so that something's going on with the generation. We'll talk about this separately, about the millennials and the Z generation. But in the meantime, a Kabbalist, he's not wrong in his forecasts. It's only that Dr. Leitman, he simply doesn't act or work according to the same standard of time. Ronen, suppose I'm one of your viewers. I listen to what you're saying. I have a boutique shop. According to your criteria, it's not a necessary business, and things can get along without it fine. Dr. Leitman, let's examine it this way. If we live in a normal way where we have everything that we need, you can't erase from a woman the inclination toward beauty, for a boutique, for all of these things. So, the hair parlor and hair saloons and boutiques and beauty parlors and all that, basic needs. Very close to that. Ronen, so let's talk about men, it's easier. The gift shops for men, with the lighters and gadgets that no one needs. Suppose I have this kind of shop, and I heard you say that gradually the world is getting rid of its redundant businesses, and it's better for them to close these businesses, and instead of investing money into that, trying to save them, what am I supposed to do tomorrow morning? Close my shop? Dr. Leitman, you don't need to do anything. I think that these things will disappear by themselves. We don't have to forcefully close anything. God forbid, no. It has to really be the call of the hour, what we call the call of the hour. Ronen, but I heard what you said. Dr. Leitman, you're sitting in your shop with all those things that you have, and you see that day after day that you're not even making enough money to pay for the rent. So why keep the shop? And you see that others like you, other shops like you, see that it's coming to an end. Ronen, so we have to allow them to die a natural death. Dr. Leitman, of course, only that way. No one's going to close anything forcefully. Only we want to show the country that it's better not to sustain such businesses that aren't necessary, that don't meet our basic needs. Ronen, but in the meantime, I and my colleagues also have these kinds of shops. We take to the streets, we're demanding the country to help us. Dr. Leitman, but suppose that I'm governing the country. Why do I have to give you aid? What is your complaint toward why are you demanding of the country to help these businesses that are about to go bankrupt? I'm telling you, you don't have buyers, you can't sustain the business, you can't build it anew. To really make a correct, good kind of living. So what do you want? For the country to come and buy these things from you? Suppose I'm the owner of the boutique, and I'll tell you, in the current state, you earn off my boutique, off my colleagues, you teach people to consume, they come to my shop, they pay, I pay taxes. Dr. Leitman, we came to a state where people don't want to spend money on your trade. They don't want to. Ronen, I'm saying that the distress is temporary because of an unexpected parameter. I see that the businesses around me are, getting back on their feet, and I want air so I can... Dr. Leitman, and under what promise? In promise for what? I'll give you money. Ronen, we can discuss it. Dr. Leitman, you have nothing besides the shop. What, you want to leave me with the shop for me to take care of it? Ronen, in the 2008 crisis, Obama, even though it was a capitalistic country, he took social measures. He nationalized countries by giving them loans. He said, I'll help you now, but eventually, as the country will also benefit from it. What's bad about this model? Dr. Lightman, I'm not sure that it can work. I'm not sure. You can see, according to the people, let's see the measure to which people want to travel abroad, the measure to which they'll want to go to different boutiques. You'll see. The corona it affected people. It changed their attitude toward life. This is what I'm saying. And were you to just hold up these businesses, then please, but you'll do it at the expense of the working people and at the expense of the younger people, those that just finished the army, and to this I don't agree. Ronen, in the current economic system, it's based on unnecessary businesses. Dr. Lightman, this I understand, but I don't have to sustain this entire method either. Why do I have to keep it at any price? A method that allows the rich to even grow richer. That's it. This is the only thing that it's concerned with, so what do I need it for? Afterwards, I'll have to nonetheless take care of the people that in the meantime are really being depleted of all their means. Ronan, you asked and answered. There's always a map of interests. The 20% that are gaining off this method plenty, they have an interest. They're willing to sustain it at any cost. Dr. Lightman, crony capitalism, as always, is having a ball. Ronan, we see it all the way. Dr. Lightman, so why talk about it if it'll happen anyway? Ronan, because there's one component that they're not in control of. And this is what the wisdom of Kabbalah talks about. It's the human component, man that's developing in his desires. This is the key. Dr. Lightman, then it will happen. It doesn't depend on the country or on the billionaires. Ronan, exactly, and this the call of the hour. You said that there's the call of the hour. So if we're talking about the dimension of time according to the forecasts of the wisdom of Kabbalah, why is now a special, more intensive time and more than it was 80 years ago when Bala Salam wrote his articles? Dr. Lightman, time's changing all the time at an ever-increasing rate. And you see, we're also flying, traveling, leaping. How much can we do with our mobiles and communications? Today, we're capable over a period, throughout our lifetime. We can do things that a person couldn't do in a few hundreds of years. So times are different. Ronen, I heard you say that we're at a critical point where, on the one hand, it's the most acute situation, but most fit. What do you mean? Dr. Lightman, true. One opposite the other. This is how it always is. That if we will be able to use this time correctly, then really we will arrange things differently. That the entire surplus that there is, that people have, that the rich people, the countries have, let's start sharing it differently. I'm not saying to have a revolution like the Bolsheviks did, and then they depleted the country from everything. But let's see, what does the tomorrow or the day after? What does it position in front of us? We have to see that nonetheless, the connection between people is necessary. How will we educate the entire world, teach the entire world connection, integral connection? If we don't do that, then we will not be able to enjoy any method, no matter what we do, with crony capitalism, with people, with everything. I see no future here. Ronen, last question about this specific topic. Bala Sulam in his forecasts, I heard you say about that he kind of floats above time. He sails through time as if his feet weren't on the ground in this respect. So how can we convince our viewers that what we hear from you now is different in this respect? Dr. Leitman, I can't convince them because they have they see things the way everyone does, according to how things are today. According to what the country has, nation has, people have, they can't think differently. I can't convince anyone. I can pass this knowledge on to them somehow, my point of view, but every person will look at me and will think, you're a bit delusional, you're fantasizing, you think too well about mankind, or to the contrary, you're revolutionary. You think that it's possible to do this by force. How else? How can you change human nature? This is actually the thing. I'm saying that's what's happening now. Is coming in order to change human nature, only gradually in a soft way, and if we don't do it, then we will enter such states and conditions that will change us in a much harsher way. All in all, this is what's going on, but of course without changing human nature. From bad to good, nothing's going to happen. Ronen, so this is exactly what I want to ask about. This is the next topic. In our explanation, when we come to changing human nature, immediately you use the word education. I think that this is the word you use most in your explanations. Why is this the central part, the education, as the solution that the wisdom of Kabbalah is introducing? Dr. Leitman, education builds a person, and if a person got the right education in childhood and later on, he behaves later on accordingly, and therefore the most important thing for us is to educate the new generation, the next generation. Those people in our generation right now, let's educate the next generation for things to be good for them. For them to live their life not according to burn oil or litter the earth and the seas and to corrupt everything and people and the relations between them. Let's help the younger generation as much as we can, because nonetheless they're living in our environment, in our society. Let's help them get a different kind of education. Let's put them into kindergartens, schools, universities, different such systems from which they will get the correct kind of education, above hatred, above everything that they have. For them to come out of this education as people that are well off together. Ronen, on your blog, there's this saying, the future of the world is in changing man. Were I to ask, how, then you'd say, through education. This is what you mean. Yes, because you talked about it on many shows and also on the solution, we talked about this on many of our talks. I wanted to ask about several aspects that are pretty clear for someone who's following them. Rabash, on one of his shows, is talking about this kind of, in one of his parables, Bala Sulam says about this debate where, can education change man? One of them said yes, another said no, only the upper force said, and there was this one person who tamed cats. He turned them into waiters. They served all the people, and it was clear to everyone that it's possible to change nature. And the other person, he sat quietly and calmly, eventually he took out this small box with mice. He let them loose, and immediately the cats, they became cats again. They ceased to be waiters. And this is to show that education can't change human nature. You're right. The thing is that education that people invent really can't change their nature. We're egoists that think about themselves all the time, enjoying what we get, what we fulfill ourselves with, and we also enjoy the measure to which we're more than others. I always measure myself in relation to others. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, there is an education called integral education that is based on pulling a special force from nature that can change man. That just like that force has created us, in the egoistic desire, will to receive, it can change us in our desire to bestow instead of receiving, to give. Because our nature is to enjoy, and to enjoy what? Receiving or giving? It doesn't matter. The main thing is to enjoy. So if we do the math, we get greater pleasure from giving than from receiving. First of all, in giving, no one's standing in your way. You don't steal from everyone in doing that. And everyone accepts you. You're welcome. So obviously, therefore, we only have to teach that person, to teach man or to change man how to enjoy giving instead of receiving. And this is the matter of, this is something that is possible. It is possible. Meaning to take ourselves to enjoy from giving instead of receiving, or enjoying that more. And this way we can exist between us and to make things, to have heaven on earth. So it's clear to me that 99.9% of the people that are listening to you now, and you're saying education, they surely don't mean that other type of education that you just mentioned. They understand education the way they understand it, and then it's true that education can change human nature, any kind of education. Dr. Leitman, of course, true. But that person also knew that there is a different kind of education. Right, so Bala Sulam also knew that there is a different kind of education, and he wrote in the writings of the last generation, there are several experts that explain, that show his attitude toward education, and I also think that he made the same distinction. I'll read something shortly. He says, just to point out that when Bala Sulam writes religion in this regard, he means the wisdom of Kabbalah. So he said that the natural egoism will not be broken by artificial things like education and public opinion, and the only thing that can correct this is natural religion. What does he mean? Dr. Leitman, he means that from nature we can draw, besides the force of reception, also the force of bestowal. Besides the force of separation, also the force of connection. And if this force shall dwell in us, then simply we change. We invert. We start enjoying giving just like we enjoy receiving now. And really there is no difference. The difference is only the result. The measure to which in that we get closer to each other. We reach love, connection, and I think that after all the suffering that we feel and will have to probably feel, we will nonetheless decide that we have no choice, but that we need a new kind of education. Ronen, I want to ask specifically about this because there's a serious gap between education and what the wisdom of Kabbalah thinks or sees as education. And one more thing that Bala Sulam says is, and also there's no point in hoping that this horrific regime will change ever, like the optimists hope, because neither by power or education is it possible to change human nature without the sufficient fuel for it. Dr. Laitman, of course, that in a way that everyone will understand and agree and will want it, it won't happen that way. But I'm talking on part of the country. Again, I'm going back to that. It's forbidden for the country to spend money to sustain businesses that in the near future, one way or another, will see them fail. And then everything that we invested in them, that the country invested in them, at the expense of the poor people, the young couples, the soldiers, that this money will disappear. And what are you going to do? How are you going to tell the next generation that they don't have an apartment, they don't have work, they have no support, they have nothing? You'll say that you spent it all on boutiques, Dr. Legman. They don't care. Unfortunately, I'm telling you, they don't care. Like Bala Sulam says, there will always be those that will take the cream and leave the skinny water of the milk for everyone else. This is how it was, and unfortunately, I think it will be, unless there will be some kind of dramatic change. And therefore, what we want to scrutinize is the concept of education here. And so my next question is re-education, as we call it, or compulsory, the law of compulsory education is perceived by people that they don't feel like it. It's that fits North Korea or some other dictatorship. How do you break down this wall? Compulsory education, meaning? Dr. Leitman, what have we arranged schools for? Kindergartens, isn't it in order to educate people? A person that finishes school, what does he know? A bit math, physics, history, and he forgets it all anyway. He doesn't remember anything. It's only in order to spend their time at school so they won't wander in the streets and become criminals. So what are we doing? We have to educate human beings. To educate, it's not the acquisition of knowledge, it's education. These are different things. Is it the Ministry of the Acquisition of Knowledge or the Ministry of Education? Ronan, sorry, I'm asking about something different. After we understood the need for changing human nature through education, according to what you mean by education, still, when you come to a person and you say, look, the situation isn't good, the country will take care of your basic needs, you only have to participate in that educational framework. He says, what? They re-educate Muslims in China, in North Korea, those that oppose the regimes. What do you want from me? Dr. Leitman, don't you want for your child to be a human being? What are you teaching him? You're just teaching him a profession. And what about how to have a family, how to educate your grandchildren, the way they'll live, the relations they'll have? That's not important? This is what we see. Therefore, we see this entire generation that, what are they thinking about life? They don't want to get married, they don't want to have children, they have problems with their self-identity, with their all kinds of identity. This is what we came to. And we, the people of Israel, that everyone thought about us that we are the most developed nation. Today we seem as the nation that has lost everything. Connection, direction. We're left with nothing. We're all as if standing at a crossroads, having no idea where to go. When you talk about education, you're not only talking about the younger generation, but that everyone will be engaged in it. Besides necessary work, everything else will be engaged in education. True, when I don't know, but this is how it's going to be. Ronen, and to a grown-up, it seems compulsory. Dr. Leitman, our entire life is compulsory, to begin with, only we're not aware of it. We don't admit it. We don't feel it on ourselves, but from morning till evening, and in general, everything that I'm doing is compulsory because I have to. Life forces me to. Here, it's not that I have to. Here, I'm gradually learning under good, nice professional guidance how to build for myself and my children a better future. Why is that bad? Ronen, can you wrap this up in a sweet wrapping, this concept of new education? Dr. Leitman, imagine that you move into a new apartment. That up until now you had 2.5 rooms with all of your children, thank God. And now you're moving to an apartment of 8, 9 rooms. Big rooms, good, nice. And you have a nice garden and everything. Really, you have everything. What do you feel when you move from one apartment to another? This is what you're taught, how now to enter a good life. So why is that not good? A very beautiful perspective is opened up to you. And the main thing is that you see your children, especially your grandchildren, that unless they come closer to that, their life will every time be worse and worse. Ronen, capitalism also educates entire generations since the 50s, but in a very sophisticated way. It doesn't say, I'll re-educate you or you'll sit and study all the time, but by introducing different doctrines through culture, through Hollywood, through movies, from parents to children, educating everyone to become consumers. And the educational system supports the current system, but no one feels that he's being educated. They grow into it. Dr. Leitman, I understand. Ronen, it's very sophisticated. Can the wisdom of Kabbalah do the same? Be sophisticated? Dr. Leitman, we're not there yet, but for sure we'll have to do it. We don't come to people, and we also see it on you, how much you resist it. So for sure, we will have to, with the help of Hollywood and theater and music and through different philosophers and scientists and whatnot, we will have to create a new culture, a new approach, obviously. But it all comes as a result of there being no choice. And we're forced to. So I'm not selling any new perspective of life or selling it as my idea, but it's the law of nature that either we do it forcefully or we reach a state where we do it ourselves. This is what Bala Sulam writes, that we take the law of nature of development into our own hands, and this is how we develop, one of the two. So if we talked about these two kinds of education, one is egoistic, and the other is one that can draw from nature, that force that can change human nature, sometimes in our activities, sometimes the activities in this education seem different, so it's important who's doing it. It's the same activities, ABC, same ABC, the only question is who does it. This already makes the difference between the A and B kinds of education. Dr. Leitman, yeah, this is actually what we have to prepare. It's not prepared either. I'm not saying that that's something that we have to do from one day to the next, because this is something that you can only do forcefully. This is something that you can't do forcefully. Here the education has to be willingly, from beginning to end. Ronen, I mean, if there are two groups that are engaged in connection activities that increase love and connection and so on, and the guides of the one circle are somehow related to the wisdom of Kabbalah and our materials, even if they don't use the words that we use, and the other circle does the very same actions, but the guides there are unrelated to the messages that we talked about, will there be a difference between the two circles? Dr. Laitman, it's a topic, this is a new topic that we'll have to talk about. Ronan, probably I can't see the nuances, but why is it related to what we talked about? It's like the parable that we talked about with the cats and mice. Where will be the taming, the re-education or new education that will change human nature, and where won't it work? Dr. Laitman, I don't know how to do it. I'm not practical in this regard. I only learned what Bala Sulam writes, just as you did, and therefore, to the measure to which I can, I'm trying to do it. I think that the fact that now we are in the days of the coronavirus, we're already starting to see how much nature can bend us, deplete us from our previous approach. And suddenly, after everyone's sitting at home and will not keep all of these egoistic laws necessarily until we'll change. I don't know, but for sure, nature has many means for this. Well, and when we're talking about the corrected model, then participating in this man's new work, he won't have to work in many of today's professions, and this is his new work, maybe at first as a student, later on as a guide, as an instructor. Why is it all lifelong? Why doesn't it have a beginning and an end? Dr. Laitman, I think that our entire work, 100% of humanity, has to be a work in which it educates itself. And in addition, suppose 2 hours a day, each of us will have to work in necessary things. This is how we'll have to arrange ourselves. We'll talk about this on our next talk, but in the meantime, it seems that a person can be in this kind of course. Suppose he understood this for Dr. Laitman. No, it's not. It doesn't have a time framework because the connection between us opens eternal things to us, so long-term, so different that we can't finish it in a year or two. What does it mean that I enter the next grade in the process of education? Dr. Laitman, that you start seeing things more and more internally, so much so that we move from world to world, if we can say, because we change human nature. Ronen, what is the positive outcome to society as a result of persons' participation in this educational process? Dr. Laitman, society becomes well, happy, attaining the meaning of life, coming out from the boundaries of time, space, and motion, starting to reveal the world that is above us, literally, above life and death, illnesses, everything. Ronan, today academic institutions have this open day where they invite everyone that wants to join and promise them what are they going to learn, the lectures that they'll have, this, that. Suppose we have this kind of day, there are a few hundreds of students in front of us that kind of heard that there is such a special kind of education. What do you tell them? For them to happily accept this process of education. Dr. Laitman, I have to show them what this world is. that everyone knows what that is, only we have to, introduce it in a horrific way. This world, what is it about? And what we give to our children and grandchildren, how we have nothing good to give them, how much we ourselves are destroying life and nature and everything, until our world will be destroyed altogether by a world war, or we'll bury ourselves under all the garbage that we make. And therefore, what I'm offering them isn't a life in which we're afraid of each other, where we destroy ourselves and our environment, but let's take care of all of these things the way it suits people, the upper degree of nature. Where's that? I heard many bad things here and only a few good things. I'll go to a different university. Dr. Layton, please, no problem, free choice. You don't have to, we're not forcing anyone. We're only explaining that at the end of the day you have no choice. You have to learn how to live in a new era, where the coronavirus will arrange such conditions for us that we will be unable to keep living our life unless we change ourselves. First, to think about ourselves, that we have to care for others, and this way, this is the only way that we'll be able to get rid of these viruses that will systematically come to us now. Ronen, we'll talk about this on our next show. Thank you very much, Dr. Michael Lightman, and all the best to everyone. Thank you.